All right, let's talk about something huge. I mean, literally huge. We're going to dig into the very foundations of our modern world, the construction industry. It builds our cities, connects our lives, but, and this is a big but, it has a colossal environmental footprint. The good news, though, it's on the verge of a massive green transformation. So let's get right into it.
Okay, first things first, let's just try to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this. Think about every single natural resource we pull from the planet. Every tree, every mineral, you name it. The construction industry consumes half of all of it, 50%. That's, well, it's staggering. It means every other industry on Earth has to share the other half. That's the kind of footprint we're dealing with here, and you just can't ignore a number like that.
So, that leads us right to the big question, right? The one we're here to tackle. With an impact that massive, how do you even begin to fix one of the world's biggest polluters? Now, the answer, it's not simple, of course, but there is a really powerful new blueprint starting to emerge. And that blueprint? It's called sustainable construction. Now, this isn't just about, throwing in a few recycled materials here and there. No way. It's a complete, radical rethinking of how we build everything, from the very first sketch on a napkin to what happens when a building comes down decades from now. We're talking about a move away from that old take, make, waste model to something that's circular and just a whole lot more responsible.
So, to really get what this means, let's look at the official definition. The key phrase you need to zoom in on here is entire life cycle. That's absolutely crucial. It means we're not just looking at the part where the hammers are swinging and the concrete is pouring. We're thinking about sustainability from the very, very beginning, the initial design, all the way through decades of a building just existing, its operation and maintenance, right up until its eventual renovation or even deconstruction. It's that whole cradle-to-grave idea, or even better, cradle-to-cradle.
And this whole idea, it really rests on four simple but super powerful pillars. Think of it like this. Number one, conserve. Pretty straightforward, right? Just use less of everything. Number two, reuse. Maximize what you've already got. Three is renew and recycle. That means choosing materials that can either be replenished or turned into something new. And finally, number four, protect. You have to actively safeguard the natural environment through the entire process.
Okay, so how does all this theory actually look in practice? Let's start with the building itself. The ultimate goal, the holy grail, is the net zero building. And that's a structure that generates as much energy as it consumes. But the real secret to getting there? Well, it starts way, way before the first brick is ever laid.
At this quote right here, it gets to the very heart of the net zero philosophy. Before you even think about slapping solar panels on the roof to generate renewable energy, the number one priority is to drastically reduce how much energy the building needs in the first place. It's a reduce, then produce model. And why is that? Simple. Because making the building itself incredibly efficient is always the smartest and most cost-effective first step. And that efficiency, a lot of it is achieved through something called passive design. Just look at the difference here. The traditional design, it kind of fights against the elements, right? But the passive design, it works with them. And we're talking about simple but genius things, like orienting the building just right so it captures the low winter sun for warmth, but then using overhangs to block the high summer sun, or designing a compact shape with less surface area so it doesn't lose as much heat, placing windows to maximize natural light and airflow. It's all about letting nature do the heavy lifting for you.
Of course, the materials we choose are just as critical. And honestly, we're seeing some incredible innovation here. For example, instead of old-school bricks, we have options like AAC blocks. They're lighter, they trap air, and they act as fantastic insulators. And what about cement, which is a huge source of emissions? Well, we've got alternatives like PPC, which cleverly uses fly ash, a waste product from coal plants, basically turning trash into treasure, or at least a building material. Even the paint is getting smarter, with these low VOC options that release fewer harmful chemicals, which means better air for us to breathe inside.
But think about it. A green building isn't really green if the process of actually building it is dirty, right? So let's shift our focus from the structure to the worksite itself. The next big frontier is tackling the emissions from all that massive diesel-guzzling machinery that does the heavy lifting. And for that problem, the answer just might be hydrogen.
And hey, this isn't some far-off sci-fi fantasy. The market is already taking off. Just look at these numbers. The market for hydrogen-powered heavy machinery is set to expand by over 70% in the next decade alone. So what's driving this? It's a powerful one-two punch of stricter government regulations and, corporate pressure to go green. This is not a niche idea anymore. It's becoming a business imperative.
And guess who's leading the charge? Well, as you can see, the construction industry is the single biggest adopter, commanding almost half the entire market for this stuff. They are way out in front, followed by other heavy hitters like mining and agriculture that are, facing similar pressures to clean up their act. And believe me, this isn't just talk. The biggest names in the game are already placing their bets. I mean, you've got Caterpillar partnering with fuel cell experts, you've got Komatsu teaming up with Toyota, JCB has already launched its first hydrogen-powered excavator, and Hyundai is just pouring huge amounts of money into R&D. Listen, when all these industry giants start moving in the same direction, you know a major shift is underway.
Okay, but let's be real. This revolution is not going to happen overnight. Like any massive industrial shift, the road ahead is filled with both huge challenges and, incredible opportunities. It's that classic story, right? The push and pull forces that are shaping what comes next.
So let's break those forces down. On the one hand, pushing the industry forward, you have really strong drivers like tightening environmental regulations and these ambitious corporate sustainability goals. But on the other hand, holding it back, you have some very real hurdles. The biggest ones? The super high upfront cost of building out hydrogen production and all the refueling stations, and just the simple fact that the infrastructure isn't widespread. At least, not yet.
And this all brings us to one last big question. Humanity is always building. We're always shaping the world around us. That is never going to stop. So the real choice isn't if we build, it's how we build. The next time you walk past a construction site, don't just see a building going up. See it for what it is. A choice being made about the very foundation of our future. So, the question is, what are we going to choose?